So welcome to tonight's Dharma Talk, everyone. Tonight, as Nick sent out in the email, the Dharma Talk is called Lessons from Thailand. And so I'll be talking about my stay in Thailand. I've just returned from Thailand last week. I've been back about 1 week. So the path of awakening is summarised by the Eightfold Path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness and right concentration. So it's also summarised by these three components of the Eightfold Path. Practicing ethics, so you get a stable foundation. Meditation, practicing meditation, which is the right effort, right mindfulness and right concentration component of the Eightfold Path. And cultivating wisdom, which is the right view, right intention aspect of the Eightfold Path. This path is kind of summarised also by considering it is about cultivating the wholesome. It's waking up, it's a path to awakening, and it's about cultivating the wholesome and releasing and letting go of the unwholesome. The wholesome is basically cultivating wisdom. It is basically cultivating kindness and compassion, non-aversion, the opposites to aversion, the opposites to rejection and condemnation. It is about cultivating generosity and non-clinging. And it is also about seeing clearly. So these are the qualities that we cultivate. And we also let go of what's called Kilesa. In Pali, the term Kilesa the literal translation of the word Kilesa is distortion. Distortion. I remember listening to a talk by Alan Wallace's partner, and she's a Sanskrit translator, and she said the word Kilesa comes from the root to distort. Kilesa, also known as mental defilements, mental distortions, the corruptions of the mind. These tendencies to cloud our mind with our with our greed, ignorance, and hatred. In fact, the roots of the Kilesa are in greed, ignorance, and hatred. There are various manifestations of these, and I won't go through all the possibilities of the mental distortions because I could spend all day here talking about them. So that's the path of awakening, cultivating the wholesome and letting go of the unwholesome. So recently I travelled to Thailand and had a fantastic time. It was great. I went for a total of about 7 weeks, and I spent some time with family. My middle son went across and I spent some time with him and his children and his partner. I spent some time with my relatives. I have Thai relatives. I married a Thai woman, so I still have relatives there in Thailand. And also spent probably a total of about maybe 3 weeks, maybe more, in monasteries, in temples. I visited a lot of monasteries, yet I stayed in 4 different monasteries, all with different kind of patterns around what they're doing, like different styles, different teachers and different teachings. And I had the good fortune to stay at a place called, and Nick told me about these temples, a place called Wat Ratanawan. And that temple, the abbot of that temple is an Australian-born monastic. He's been a monastic for about 45 or 6 or 7 years, a long time. And it was really amazing because I prepared to go there, and I I went there, and I didn't know that I actually met him when I was a monk. I met him as a layperson when I was a monk. So it was really wonderful to meet him and talk with him, and we talked a lot about sanya, memories of the times that we had known. Well, I had various conversations with him as a monk in 1978, I think it must have been, and it was really, really good to have those conversations with him. Anyway, at this temple there was only 10 monastics. And the other side of the road there was a female quarters, but I stayed in the male quarters, of course. And there were 10 monastics, and there was a couple of what's called anagarika, is that right? Anagarika? Or in Thai it's called pakao. Pakaos are people aspiring to be monks or nuns, I guess. In this case it was just the monks. And they hold 10 precepts, and they dress with white clothes, and they're just practicing, they're just helping out, sticking to the precepts, meditating and doing the practice, and doing that for about a year. So in this particular temple, because Achan Philip, he's called Achan Philip, or the abbot's called Achan Philip, or Lungpo Nyayadamo, because he was English speaking, we'd have instructions in English and in Thai. So every morning after doing the chores, after eating the meals, the pakaos would come up and sit with Lungpo. I'll call him Lungpo because that's what he's called there. Lungpo is like a title. It means kind of grandfather, beyond grandfather. Venerable father. Yeah, okay. Long, venerable father. Yeah. And I think it probably comes to people that are monastics that are over 70 or something like that, or olderish.
Highly respected.
Yeah, highly respected. So anyway, there were 2 pakaos. One was from Russia, one was from Canada, and the third one was from Thailand. So there would be instructions every morning, well, most mornings. And one morning, Lungpo was saying there are 3 Thai words that you should become very familiar with. Very familiar with these 3 Thai words. And they were Otton. The next one was Patipat. And the next one is Toraman. And what I'd like to do now is explain the meaning of these three Thai words, and also provide some examples of how I practiced these and integrated them in some respects. So the word Otton, well, I'll tell you a little bit of a story about this word Otton, first of all. There is an English-born monastic that I've been listening to for about 3 or 4 years, listening to his Dharma talks in Thai, because his Thai is fantastic. This is Achan Jayasaro. He's an English-born monastic. He went to Thailand about the same time I was in Thailand. We didn't actually meet, but we would have crossed paths. There was some strong timely similarities. He only went when he was very young, and he went and stayed with Achan Lungpo, Achan Cha then, or now he's called Lungpo Cha. So he didn't speak any Thai in the beginning. And the first words that he learned, because he heard Achan Cha saying it a lot in a Dharma talk, was Otton. Otton. So he asked someone after the Dharma talk, what's this word, Otton? And one of the English-speaking monastics said, it means to endure. It means to tolerate, to hang in there with it. It also means patience. So that was the first word he learned, and now he can speak Thai probably better than a Thai person in terms of Dharma anyway. I mean, it's fantastic to listen to him give Dharma talks. So this word Otton, I think it's really important to understand it. And I was a monastic once, only for a couple of years, only for almost 2 years. And I noticed that I had to endure. I mean, I was living in the northeast of Thailand, living without any other foreign monks. I was living in quite a ascetic monastery. And, you know, there'd be times when we'd have one meal a day, times when I'd get hungry. I was quite skinny. At times when I got very sick. I got malaria around that time from southern Thailand, but when I was staying in this temple, it's called Wat Doi Dhammajetti, or Wat Doi for short, I began to experience the symptoms of malaria. So that was pretty difficult in a foreign country, you know, nobody really speaking English and having to learn Thai and just having the symptoms of malaria. It's really quite difficult. And then I was there later on. When I was there, I got hepatitis A, so it was quite a lot to endure. I realised while I was there, I was sick and I was hungry, and also my body wasn't very used to sitting on the floor. And in Thailand, you sit on the floor all the time, and you know, you sit on hard tile floors, and sometimes you sit for hours listening to Dharma talks, and there was a lot of pain for me in being in that monastery. But I learnt that you just had to endure. I mean, what else are you going to do? You do what you need to do, of course. Like when I was sick, I visited the doctor and took the medicine that I need to take and so on. But what else can you do? You just have to endure. And when you can endure, you start to realize that it's all impermanent. It all changes. And it's strengthened. It gives you a strength. It gives you a capacity to endure. And so I was a monk there. I was learning that enduring is the way it is. In fact, in our lay lives, we need to endure. What are we going to do? We meet up with lots of situations that are just unpleasant. I remember I'm recently semi-retired, but I've been working for full time for about 35 years. You know, sometimes I wake up in the morning and think, oh God, I wish I could have a day off. But you just continue. You continue. You've got appointments, you need to go to them, and sometimes you don't feel like you want to go, but you just got to endure. I mean, what else can you do? And this is one way of overcoming dukkha, becoming free. So I know that Anna gave a Dharma talk last week, didn't you, Anna? And it was on the topic of patience. So, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say the same things that Anna said last week, but the word for patience in Pali is khanti. And Otton also means patience in many respects. And patience often, in the West anyway, often refers to this sense of putting up with difficulty, a sense of forbearance, like a sense of tolerating and hanging in there with the difficult experiences, as I've been describing with endurance. However, I did listen to a Dharma talk by Ajahn Amaro, who is another one of those amazing monks from the time of Ajahn Chah, and he's the abbot of Amaravati in the UK. And he talked about patience in the English language. It's all about forbearance and so on. It's often about that. But there's a nuance to the word khanti, in that it means also being very present, completely present. So that you have patience because this is all there is. This is the reality of this situation right now. We're just here now. And when one can be here now, you're not craving for something in the future or something in the past. You're not craving to have the pain in your knee disappear. You're just being present with it. it is just the way it is. It's just this. And it becomes like there's nobody here other than just this experience. So I thought that particular slant and nuance of patience is another way of describing Otton, like being present, completely present with the experience of life as it is, whether it's pleasant or painful. It's just hanging in there. So that's Otton. I think it's a really useful word, as Luang Por Dharma was saying. It's good to learn the meaning of that word. Ajahn Chah used that word a lot. Other words he used were, another word he used, and I described it before, is Patipat. Patipat refers to practice, the practice. And something I noticed when I went to Wat Ratanawan and the other monasteries, that there was certain periods of meditation, of course, but a lot of the time was just spent doing what you're doing. At Wat Ratanawan we had a kind of clean-up periods. We had to clean up the kutis, and there was always sweeping. Every morning there was sweeping, and every afternoon there's a bit of sweeping, and there's things to do. And it's just about doing these things, both in meditation, like formal meditation, and daily life, in the best possible way, in a way that reflects the Eightfold Noble Path. Not that you have to, you're practicing on the Eightfold Path, it's a way of life. It's a whole bodily and, they talk about mind, heart, mind, and speech and actions all together. Living the Eightfold Path. And while I lived at Wat Doi Dharmachetya, I've mentioned that. I lived with a teacher. He's years ago. When I lived with him, we called him Achan Ben. And he was a pretty amazing being to live with. And he was really into Patipat. And we didn't, when I go and talk to him and have Dharma talks and listen to Dharma talks and so on, I didn't hear much about formal meditation, to be honest. One time I talked to him about meditation. He said, I just practice Buddha, and it all becomes light, and just practice Buddha. Okay. So, but he talked a lot about doing things in the right way, in a way where you're fully engaged, fully mindful. And he was quite into work, like we had to work. When you do your work, whatever you're doing it fully and completely in line with the Eightfold Path, perfectly mindfully, and doing it well. Like whether you're folding up drying cloths, or washing a bowl, or sweeping, you're doing them in a way where you're with that perfectly. I remember, and though this is an influence by Achan Ben, I was listening to a talk by Achan Mahabua, who was another great Achan who lived to, I don't know, I think he was 97 or 90, very old age. And I remember him talking about Patipat. Like if you just sloppily fold up the cloth, then go back and do it again. And I found myself doing that when I was living at Wat Doi. Like sometimes I'd do something unmindfully, and I think, oh, hold on a minute, I can't even remember what I've done there. So I'd go back and do it again. So to be kind of perfectly mindful. In fact, one day we were going Patipat, and Achan Ben, this is, we'd go Patipat. Patipat is going arms around down to the village. And this time Achan Ben said, I'm not going today, you guys go. Or not you guys, but basically you go and on that day, Achan Ben went out to I was staying in a cave on this very big temple, probably about, 3 kilometres in diameter, maybe, I don't know. Can you remember? Oh, right. Okay, so it's a very big temple and it has a big wall around it. But I was out in the cave, right off away from the other huts. And there was a little hut on the cave, close to the cave, but I just stayed in the cave. And I kind of made the cave kind of comfortable for myself. There was a big kind of seat that you could sit on, and I put a cushion up against the back of the seat so I could lean my sore back up against it. And I must have left some things around that looked a bit untidy. Anyway, Achan Ben went out to my cave while we were all Patipat. We're all going Patipat, and then after the morning meal, he called me and said, Malcolm, well, he used to call me come actually, come. You've got to have more respect for your place of where you're practicing. You've got to clean it up. And he was ordering me to do that. He told me to do an exercise. He said every day, at the end of the day, reflect back to the morning and go through every action you've done and reflect on the actions, whether they've been wholesome and healthy, whether they've been unwholesome, and just remember what you did, remember how you did it, how you did your various actions, like folding up the clothing, or folding up the cloths, and washing the bowl, and preparing the place for eating, and so on. Or do we call it eating? Yeah. So I used to do that exercise, and I started off with about 5 minutes, and over time it just got longer and longer. It said it'd be about 2 hours. But the really interesting thing about it was that I would go through every action as much as I could remember. And in fact, this was cultivating mindfulness, because the next day I would be remembering what I'm doing. I'd be present for the action and being aware of the state of mind while I'm doing, getting the things ready for. I'd be thinking about, this is what's happening right now, so I can remember that later. So it was a really wonderful exercise, and I still do it to this day. Not so much recently, but I still occasionally sit. Before I go to bed, I go through the day and think about what I've done and how I've done it. So the emphasis here on Patipat is about living the path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Being completely present, mindful, and the best way possible. So now another word called Toraman. Toraman. And Nick knows what that means. So Toraman means torture. So what's the meaning of this? Why are we talking about torture? Why is Luangpo Nyaya Dharma saying this is an important word to understand? And maybe I can talk about this by relating a story. And it's the story of me going to Wat Doi Dharma Jetty just a couple of weeks ago. Well, when I say a couple of weeks, probably a month ago now. So I put in a lot of effort to arrange where I could go before I went. And as I was saying to Nick while we were coming here, I wrote letters. I wrote letters in Thai to send to all the monasteries. But my Thai, I can read a little bit of Thai. I can speak enough Thai to get by. I can understand enough Thai to understand the Dharma talks. And I can read enough Thai to get by. I'm not fantastic. But writing's really not very good. I mean, I've forgotten how to spell things. But what I did was I wrote everything in English, and then I just put it through AI. I said, give me a Thai letter to the abbots of these temples so I can go and visit them. So the letters included to the abbot of Wat Doi Dharma Jetty, because Luangpo Ban passed away a couple of years ago. So I wrote a letter and translated into, read through it. I could read through it and I could change the things that I didn't think were right. And I sent it off, and then I put my email there, and somebody sent me an email, and they said, yes, you're welcome to come and stay at Wat Doi Dharma Jetty. as long as you stick to the 8 precepts, which means basically, have the 1 meal a day, and stick to what the practice of the temple, the protocols and the practice of the temples, and what we do here. And I said, of course, yes, of course. So after what Ratana won with the Australian abbot, where I spent about 10 days, I travelled up north, further up north to Secondacorn, and then on to Wadoi Machedi. And when I arrived there, they were sweeping. I arrived there about 2 o'clock, and and somebody come up and met me, a monastic come up and met me, said, "Oh, just see that guy over there. He'll tell you what to do." And it was a lay person. It was a lay Thai person. So we just went up, and I said, "Oh, okay, look, I'll help sweeping." So I arrived there about 2 o'clock, and we kept sweeping until about 5:30. Well, 5 o'clock actually, because I had to go back to I had to get set up in where I was staying, which was like a little dorm, with this other Thai, lovely Thai man. And, I washed up, and then we had to get back and do some chanting and then sit and meditate. So, that's really cool. Like I noticed I got there, I thought, oh, fantastic, I'm sweeping again. And then after about an hour, I'm feeling a bit tired here. I'd really like a drink. And I said, when are we going to stop and have a drink? Oh no, we had them before. We had them at 2 o'clock. So the schedule of Wat Doi is you wake at 3 in the morning, you wash up and you get down into the hall, and there's some chanting, and then there's meditation. Not a lot of chanting in the morning, but there's some chanting, and there's meditation. So we meditate until 5, and then get ready to get the food, to get everything ready to have a meal. But this involves the monastics going off to the villages and going Patipat, and it also involves us preparing things, and if there's anything to sweep, we sweep. And also, so there's that, and then the monks come back and everyone puts in, there's a lot of people that come to the temple and they all put in food into the bowls, the Patipat bowls. But there's so much food that you carry a big tray around so the monks can empty the food into that. Then there's all these big trays of food, and you put them down and you sort them out, and a lot of the villagers come up and take the food home after all. So a lot of people are fed through that, and I noticed that some people were fed in the local hospital, which Achan Lumpur Ben built a whole hospital unit, and he got the monks to build it in Secondacorn. Anyway, cutting a long story short, there's a lot of things to do, and then before we eat, we sit down and listen to a Dharma Talk. The Dharma Talk goes on for about this teacher is used to give Dharma Talks of about 50 minutes. And then there'll be chanting, and then you'd eat, and then you clean up, and then you probably sweep a bit more to clean up the temple. So I'm doing more sweeping. And then by about maybe 10:30 in the morning or 11 o'clock, you can go back to your room and meditate and clean up and so on. But then 2 o'clock, it's out again. You can have a drink. It's like a hot tea, or they had a lot of juices there, so I'd be drinking juices. And then sweeping again. So I mean, I know you're laughing, and I was there. I was there for 5 days, and I started to, like I said, the first couple, sweeping is a wonderful meditation. And when I lived there with Lumpur Ben or Achan Ben then, because he was only 50 something when I was living with him, there were about 30 monastics, 30 other monastics. So this big temple, it's on a hill, and there's a lot of rock. And over the years there's become a lot of trees, so there's a lot of leaves. So you just sweep them up. And back then, we'd probably sweep for about an hour and a half every day. and a little bit in the morning. But now we're sweeping. And now, when I went to this temple, there was only 6 monks, so there was a lot to sweep. And I got warned about it from someone at Otton. He said, you better help them sweeping. So there I am sweeping. And like I said, the first day was fantastic, it's good exercise. But after an hour, you start to feel pretty exhausted. And then, I was averaging between 4 and 7 hours sweeping a day. And it's a hot climate. I'm really, I'm nearly 70. And not that that's a problem, but I'm not used to doing so much physical work. I'm a clinical psychologist. I sit down all day, listen to people. I was getting pretty tired, pretty exhausted, and my mind would be going, what am I doing here? I've come all the way to Thailand to sweep. And you come back the next day, the leaves are back. You sweep them up and you put them somewhere and the leaves come back. Even on windy days, you're sweeping up and they're just blowing back. So I remember thinking back in those days, this is great meditation. It's really being present. You're just doing it. And it's true. You just do it. So I had a lot of complaining thoughts coming up, like, maybe I'll die of exhaustion here. Or maybe, I would really like a cool drink. Maybe a lychee juice. That'd be so nice. A cool lychee juice. Or maybe I can try to get some Barocca because I'm feeling really phased out. 1 meal a day, I'd really like something to eat. And so on and so forth. And I just kind of noticed the complaining mind. And every now and then I'd go, just be present. And it was that. I could best be present. I could be mindful of just one sweep. Every moment, just this. And I discovered that the more I could be present and mindful, the more the complaining thoughts didn't arise. When I could be completely present, it was like the Kilesa were being starved. There's a thing about Kilesa, thing about the mental defilements. You feed them and they grow. If you starve them, they don't grow, if that makes sense. So this is what I think is meant by Toraman. Torturing the Kilesa, torturing in Thai would be the kilet. They talk it, the way they say it in Thai is kilet, torturing the kilet. And it's about not nourishing them, not feeding into them, not making them into stories. And the result is you become very present. One becomes very present. In fact, it's kind of like, it's so exhausting to feed them. The best alternative is just to be present. Just to be here now. It's like if you have a pain in your knee and it's hurting and you create a big story about it, and you can do what you need to do if you've got a pain in the knee, but by creating a big story, it just makes it worse and worse and worse. But any of us people who have done some Vipassana retreats, we know that if we can just observe pain, it changes. There's no story about it. It becomes really tolerable. It's just this sensations. Pain is the label we put on it. So that's the meaning of Toraman Kilesa. Toraman Kilesa. Or Toraman, the defilements or the mental distortions. So I did actually, I stayed there for about 5 days. And as I was leaving, I made the decision that I'd spend a bit of money to get to Wat Ba Dan Wiwek, which is where this lovely old teacher, he's 93 years old, Lung Po Tui. He was staying, and when I went and saw Achan Philip, Lumpur Nyai Damo. I said, oh look, I'd really like to go there, but it's so difficult to get there. It's so sort of right up near the Lao border, and it's so far away. And I was looking at all the different ways I could get there, and it was, every which way was going to be difficult. It was going to take me a couple of days, even from Wat Doi. And I decided I'd inquire about how much a taxi would cost. So I actually hired a taxi to take me for a 3.5-hour drive through the back ways directly to this place. Anyway, so I said I was going to go there, and then, but I had it the night before I was leaving. It was we sat till 11 o'clock at night. So it's up at 3 a.m. working, meditating, eating, working. Sometime back in your hut to meditate if you get some chance, and then back sweeping. Then you go to chant at 7 p.m. and usually to have a meditation through to 9. That's the general thing. But on this occasion, the night before I was leaving, on that occasion, we were going to sit up until 11 p.m. So it was like 4 or 5 hours sitting. And because the king's mother had died, and we were doing that in respects of her. So I pulled a chair into that sit because I thought it's going to be hard. And I managed to roll up my jacket and put it behind my back because I got a weird back. It gives me pain. I like to support my back. Anyway, and I probably shifted once or twice during that sit. The next day I was saying goodbye to the Achan at that moment. And then he said to me, I know you've got a sore back. You could probably tell. And you know that it's impermanent. All you have to do is let it be. Let it be. It'll change. You don't have to do anything. Let it be. Let it change by nature. This is nature. This is the teachings of Luang Por Ban, letting things change according to nature. And what he did was he picked up a bottle of water and he poured it on this highly polished floor. It's just a little tiny puddle. And he said, see that? If you don't do anything with that, you don't wipe it up, what will happen to it? And I said, well, it'll evaporate, it'll disappear. And he said, yes, according to nature. That's it. That's it. According to nature. So the journey at Wat Doi Dhamacedi was very much about facing up to dukkha. For me, it was facing up to discomfort. I had a lot of that when I was a monk there, and to be honest, I had a bit of trepidation to return to Wat Doi because I was afraid of that, and the very thing that I was afraid of actually happened. But there's a process of working through the Four Noble Truths, and the process of the first truth is to understand it by turning towards it. So when we turn towards our dukkha and understand it, we see that it changes. We see the 3 characteristics of existence, like the 3 universal characteristics of existence: anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca being impermanence, dukkha being unsatisfactoriness or the incapacity, or one's not able to find enduring happiness from impermanent things, like it's of a dukkha nature, and not self, meaning there's no thing in all this, there's no single abiding thing in experience. So I had a valuable lesson from Wat Doi Dhamacedi, and I had a lot of realizations there actually, because I spent so much time there. And when I left there, I decided that I'd stop over in Sakonnakhon and spend a night in a hotel. So I booked a hotel and spent a night, and I had a good night's sleep because I was only getting like a couple of hours sleep a night at Wat Doi. And also, you're sleeping on hard mats, and the pillows I was using was a rolled up jacket or something like that. So I had a sore neck, and I spent a night in Sokonokon, and then I went to visit this wonderful, old, beautiful teacher for a couple of nights, for 2 nights. And he allowed me to stay because I could speak Thai. He said, because you can speak Thai, I'm permitting you to stay. And we had a lot of fun. We had some fun conversations. So I hope I've conveyed the understanding of the words Otton, Patipat, and Toraman. And I hope that we can all sort of use those words and the meaning of those words in our daily practice, because that's what we need to do. So thank you very much for listening, and let's have a few moments silence, and then we can have some discussion.